Nice. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome for the third year-end presentation today. This time we are with the group of participants from the class of MEDIAE, which is the masterclass on transmedia storytelling led by the artist Salvatore Vitale. So yeah, I want just to say thank you for being with us today already. And yeah, I leave the stage to all the participants and as well to Salvatore, if you want to introduce a little bit what was the work in this month.
Welcome, everyone. I'm very happy to say a couple of words before leaving the stage to the participants of the masterclass. Today is their day. So this was the second edition of MEDIAE, which is something that is been growing and will keep on growing over the next year again. And it's always very interesting for me to have, like, this year especially, we had a very diverse class, not only in terms of artists working with different approaches in media, but also geographical locations. So the class was very much geographically spread out, which is something very enriching also for me. I think, I mean, we spent some months together. Everyone came with ideas, inputs. I think what I really appreciate about this masterclass is always like the high level of conversations and discussion we have throughout the whole process. And as I always say, the goal of this masterclass is really like focusing on the process and rethinking some of, like, unlearning and relearning to some extent. There is this overarching team which is working in this transmedia environment, whatever it means. I hope that at the end of this masterclass you understood better what it is. But there is complete freedom to really explore. And for me, what I really appreciated this year was that you all put yourself into outside your comfort zone. You really explored, and you came up with projects that some of them are more advanced, some of them are still in a phase of development. But this doesn't matter. I think that what matters is very much like that you managed, all of you, in different ways with different pacing, to really put yourself like in discussion, right? Also your practice. And I think the curiosity that was proper of this class was for me very enriching. I really enjoyed many of the conversation we had. And I think also the audience will see it in how diverse the projects are and what kind of different directions they take. So I don't want to say much more. I want you to present your work, and there will be sometimes also for some questions to deepen some aspects. But thank you very much for being part of this. Thank you very much for putting yourself into this journey together with me and trusting me to do that. That was really, really important for me, and I really appreciate and value it. So I leave the stage to you guys.
Thank you, Salvatore. So yeah, let's start. We have Alina now.
Yes, I will share my screen.
Yeah.
Can you see it?
Yeah, wait a moment. Okay, yes. Put full screen.
Yes. All right. Is it full screen?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so hi, everyone. My name is Alina Cristea, and I am an artist and researcher from Romania, but I am based in Brussels in Belgium. And I have been working on finishing my long-term project about Bucharest, which is about belonging and loss in many senses. And after a year-long break from the project, I returned to it, which coincided with this masterclass and getting the funding to do it. So Bucharest, the city with one inhabitant, the city me, fits perfectly within the transmedia framework we've been talking about, and is no longer a never-ending research that keeps expanding, as I believed before this class. And through the guidance of Salvatore, Rosa, but also the other participants, I got the inspiration and also the knowledge to bring all these pieces of the puzzle that I've been working on for several years and revisit also ideas that I had, but I couldn't finalize or continue. So I'm now in the final stage of the project, and I've been working on 2 videos out of these 4 that I mentioned here. And one of them is about the neighborhood where I grew up in Bucharest, which is called Balta Albă, and the other one is about my maternal grandmother, Doina. And simultaneously, I've been also exploring this new avenue, attempting to reconstruct my grandfather's demolished house in Bucharest based on fragmented archival material, such as this small photograph, which is the last one that we have, and it was taken in 1988, right before the demolition, during Ceausescu's regime. And we also had a cadastral plan and a situational plan from the 40s and the 50s to aid us in this reconstruction. And my mother was also a secondary source, as she's the only family member who remembers the house. And she created this floor plan of the house, which we then used. And I worked together with an architect, and together we were able to piece 2D and 3D sketches, ultimately simulating a walk through the gate and the courtyard of the house, which was covered by grapevines, hydrangeas, and also a fig tree. And my mother's memories added color and texture to this unreliable and damaged photograph we had, making this reconstruction infinitely valuable to my family, but also it reflects the history of countless other families in Bucharest who lost their homes due to political ideologies and unforeseen circumstances. Bucharest is also a seismic area. And I wanted to show you this brief progress video, which guides you to my grandfather's house and back to a time and a place that I believe is novel or unfamiliar to many of you, and that is Bucharest in the 80s. So I'll play this. Yes, and we also used the 3D sketches and also my mother's memories as prompts in recreating these AI-assisted renderings. And then I also showed them to my mother, who said, yeah, like the plants were like in this photo and the window was from this photo. And now the next step in the collaboration is to make the physical model of the house. And I will also have a presentation because the artistic part of this project is also part of my PhD in the arts. And so I will have a presentation in September in Brussels, bringing all these elements together in the exhibition. So it was very brief, but if you want to stay in touch and maybe find out more about my progress and also about this exhibition, you can reach out through these channels. And thank you for listening. I think I was faster than I thought. Like if maybe Salvatore has questions or anyone else.
Thank you very much, Alina. That was pretty, you were very good, very clear, straight to the point. Thank you. Now, to follow the format of these presentations, of course, I'm the one asking questions. But so for me, I really would like you to deepen a bit more, also for the audience, the process of like this mixing between, starting from memory, investigative research, and speculation. So to recreate this house, I think that is important. It's very interesting to give like some more insights about that aspect of your project, because I think it was like challenging, but at the same time very inspiring also for me to see how you managed to really recreate the space that doesn't exist anymore.
And you want to know more about how we did it? Or...
Yes, give some more insights about the whole process. Yes.
Yeah, well, it was this continuous back and forth, because this type of work, like this all these elements were very new for all of us. And it's actually based upon several encounters with public archives in Romania. So because I don't live there anymore full time, I had several field trips also to make new material of the city for these other elements of the project, but also to access public archives. And I was looking for the construction file of the house. And I initially started with 3 different addresses where my family used to live, and finally focused on this one just because it was, for several reasons, it was difficult to find the other ones. And with this house, I also had a connection, because after what had happened, it was that this house was expropriated in 88, and then there was the fall of Ceausescu, and then the change of the regime in the 90s, and this is when people got their land back, and there were these retrocession lawsuits that lasted for a long time, and it was through finding, while I was searching at the public archives for this material to fill in the gaps about the house, and I got obsessed about wanting to see how it used to be. My mother found this retrocession file, which contained this small picture and these little elements that I showed you in the previous slides, like at the beginning. And this is, we started building very kind of small scale. It was out of the frustration of not finding anything at the archives that we started this collaborative process, that my mother got involved as well. And then every time we found something, it would trigger new memories for her, and also these renderings of the house, the sketches. It was like a slow buildup of all these visualizations, which maybe seemed very, I don't know, clear or easy, but it was a lot of work behind it. And also it was novel for all of us working in this way. And I'm really excited to make the physical object and kind of end this process. Did I make it more clear, Salvatore?
Yeah. I think, also for the audience, I think it's important to understand how you started from a very personal story. So also for you was, in a way, challenging to build on a project that was already ongoing for several years, and at the same time adding this new narrative layer that focuses on this very small specific story, but that says a lot about the overall topic, right? And I also like this speculative approach that you also, out of necessity and frustration, that you engaged with, and that lead also to this collaborative aspect as well, right? Because you've been collaborating with other people in order to create the model, but also like the witnesses for your mom, serving as a witness. And I think, this really, I think, underlines the complexity of what you did during the masterclass, during the last months. So thank you very much, Alina.
Thank you. I will stop sharing then.
Thank you, Alina, for sharing your work. Now we have Fion I will help sharing the screen. So give me a moment. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Rosa.
Perfect. Tell me when I have to change the slide.
Yeah, sure. So hi, everyone. My name is Fion. I am a visual artist and an art educator based in Hong Kong. So for today, I'm going to present my project, The Human Unicorn, which I started making the project when this class first started. So after several months, finally, I have some images and videos to share with you guys. Please, Rosa, next page. Let me just share a bit of the background of my project first, because the project is about Hong Kong, about my roots, and about how I feel about the current situation of people in Hong Kong. So since the social events happened in 2019, the UK has revised its immigration policy, prompting many Hong Kong residents to leave their long-held homes for a country they have never visited. And this shift is deeply influenced by Hong Kong's colonial history, which has left many people feeling a complex connection to the Western culture. And for some individuals, they believe that adopting British trends grants them a sense of superiority. And this reflects broader social ideology shaped by imperialism and Orientalism, where the belief persists that proximity to Western ideals elevates one's status, though few are willing to acknowledge this in my point of view. I don't take this stance on the waves of immigration following 2019. Rather, I feel a profound sadness that many who profess their love to Hong Kong have chosen to leave. And colonialization has altered many view their homeland, and leading to the misguided belief that being Chinese diminishes their global standing. And this notion is fundamentally flawed, as it undermines their own identity. It is also disheartening to witness my people stray from their roots, seeking validation in another culture, an emotional turmoil born from the colonial legacy. And through photography, I aim to explore how these influences shape my identity and place in the world. I use deliberate body and face paint to obscure my appearance, creating a visual representation of consumed by my surroundings. And the techniques highlights themes of loss, confusion, and the struggle of self-definition. In my work, each photograph captures a scene that reflects the situation of soft power and its influence to the sense of belonging to the West for Hong Kongers, emphasizing Western perceptions of China alongside the internal conflicts faced by Hong Kongers under colonial influence. These images draw on childhood memories and small personal stories from the news to express the challenges of cultural deviation, and I hope to invite audience with similar background to reflect on how social forces reshape their connections to their own roots. So next page, please, Rosa. Yeah, so this is the first image that I've ever created for this project, and it is called The Human Unicorn. I am here take reference from a real individual known as Wang, the human unicorn, who was labeled a freak due to the horn-like feature on his head. Discovered by a Russian banker, his image later appeared on Bradley's Believe It or Not channel. And next page, please, and you can play the video while I'm talking. This is the video that I make alongside with the image. But before learning about Wang, I studied visual culture and the history of themed museums in Europe. At that time, British people often explored deformed individuals like Wang to create distorted images of non-Europeans, reinforcing imperialistic views and diminishing foreign values. And I use Wang as a symbol of the Western gaze on Asians and reflect on my own position within this colonial context. Through mimicking the outlook of Wang, I perform as my own version of human unicorn. And at the first point, I showed this image to Salvatore, and I didn't know how to transform this image into something 3D or transmedia, but he encouraged me to make moving image pieces. So I tried to study the references that he sent me, and I tried to perform some very basic movements with the exact outfit I wear for the photo shoot. I also include photograph of Wong towards the end of the video, as you guys can see it now in the small screen, to explain the background context of my abstract image. Next page, please. So the video isn't done, but because of the time limit, you guys can have a look at the video again in the link below if you're interested. So this is the second image I made, and it draws inspiration from a well-known local feature, often referred to as the Kowloon King. He struggled with mental illnesses, and he is a local in Hong Kong who died many years ago. And he spent his days basically on the streets writing Chinese calligraphy on the walls about his family history, which of course is fake. Through his writings, it becomes clear that he believed the British Emperor had stolen Hong Kong from China. And his story reminds me that history is not just a fixed narrative, but it is shaped by the beliefs and perspectives of people during that time. And his story inspired me to explore how my understanding of the history is influenced by individual experiences and interpretations. Next page, please. And this is the video that I made for this image. So basically, most of the wall paints of this guy is erased by the local government because it's not something very pleasant. And basically, these are all doodling. So the government decided to clean the streets and to remove most of the calligraphy work by him. But this wall in particular is still alive in Hong Kong, in one of the streets in Hong Kong, very close to where my studio is. And I think the NTR company decided to keep it because this serves as kind of like a collective memory for most of Hong Kong people. And the work is particularly interesting because it's written in Chinese, that saying Chinese and the UK something emperor, something like that, mixed with some of the Kowloon King's personal history and stories. Next page, please. So I will stop here and share the third image. Yeah, so in this image, I jumped to more like a childhood memory that I used shortbreads and teas as the prop in my photography. Next page, please, and you can play the video. So this is to illustrate my childhood practice of snacking on shortbread, which I never knew it is a Scottish food until I grew up. My mom used to buy a lot of these for me when I was small, and I want to emphasize on the deep cultural influence by the Western gaze by using the metaphor of shortbreads to Hong Kong people like me in this image. And that's because I find a very intimate connection with the food itself. So here again, I try to perform following the style of the image I made in the middle for the video. I was pretending to drink tea and eating shortbreads. Next page, please. Yeah, so here comes to the second last image of the project. After doing the 3 images, I kind of go to this idea of presenting Western gaze by the local Hong Kong community, and then the portrayal of Chinese individuals such as COVID spreaders in the media a few years back. That props up in my mind. I painted myself into yellow to present the idea of yellow fever described by the Western media in the past, and I used repetitive actions to create a sense of struggle. If you can see the next page with the video. Yeah, so the repetitive actions is to create a sense of struggle and also my confusion towards my origin and the root, especially presented in the video. And actually this image is the second image that I plan to photograph, but I never find the right yellow wall. And I ended up using the studio door for the shooting, so you can actually see the door knob on the video, but because I remove it in the image, so it doesn't show. And next page, please. Here comes my last image and video. And since after the creation of the previous videos and images, not only do I look for characters that represent the Western gaze, but also I look for stories of ordinary men from the Lynse in the past, in both Hong Kong and the UK. There's a Chinese man who ate lots of oranges, which sounds funny, but then his skin color ends up turning orange. And I try to portray this incident with the same shooting style to emphasize on how Chinese are being seen historically in terms of the skin color. Next page, please. Yeah, so here comes the video of this image. And if you notice, for all the videos and images, I use different style heads to represent identities of different characters. And I make the heads with paper cutting and folding techniques in tribute to Thomas D. Mans. This is an ongoing project that I'm still working on, and I am not sure how to, present the videos in an exhibition format, to be honest, right now, because I think I'm still in the process of developing the videos and even adding the sounds to it. I'm more confident with the images themselves, and I can imagine those images being printed huge and being presented on exhibition walls if it's an exhibition format, but I would imagine maybe the videos will serve as useful documentations to kind of explain the contents or the backgrounds of the abstract images that I have right now, which can also be put alongside with the prints in the exhibition. And I guess that's everything from me, and I hope it's not too complex. Yeah, but thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me.
Thank you very much, Fion. Was very clear. It's very interesting also the process in your case that led you to these moving images in relation with the photographs. But I would like to ask you a question that goes more on the conceptual side of the work. So we had a lot of discussions about, like, you started from very far away, but indeed your focus point has been always like this limbo, this in-between space, right? And you start with this story of the unicorn man, but then you expanded it, you explored different type of direction to it, right? So for me, it's very interesting to know a bit more from you, like this space in between the images and the moving images, right? Is it a way that is represented, like also visually? You're trying to represent it by putting like the still image in the center and the videos floating around it.
Yes, as I said, I had no idea on how to make moving images, but thank you to you that I start trying to perform in front of the camera, which is super difficult. But then because I didn't really have any experiences working with moving things before, so I decided to just, do everything the same. So wear the same outfit, using the same props and stage. And I tried to extend the still image by, for example, for the Calderon King image, I try to walk from one side to the other side and then connecting with the next video that myself walking from the left to the right again. So trying to connect the moving images in between while placing those videos on top of the image layer at the back. So I was trying to really play around with everything that I have, with all the materials that I have in hand. And of course, those videos are quite short because I don't really know how to expand the narration through moving image right now, but I'm trying. So it's really those small movements and repetitive movements that save me from, you know, just working 2D to working something more 3D, I guess. I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah, that's what I have in mind right now.
Thank you, Fion. But I think also like this sort of, let's say, liminal space, right, that is created between the centered image and the videos floating around it, and this movement somehow represents also the repetitiveness of the actions. In a way, somehow represents a sort of very strong conceptual message that refer also to where you started from. And so this idea of the others, this idea of defining patterns that create an image of the others, right? So I think that also visually is kind of reflected in the way you are developing the work.
Yeah, sure. And I guess it's interesting because when I was doing the video, I never had a chance to really edit, you know, the stage as much as I did to the photographs. So I have to always like do even more close-up video shooting to avoid capturing something that I don't want from the border or from outside. So I was really trying to play around, but also for the videos, I think is really useful in terms of helping me to explain what's going on in the abstract image, because as I said, I can't put everything in the image because it's aesthetically unpleasing. But then with the video, I have a lot of movements and I am able to put different videos together. So I can include more details from, you know, the history relating to the particular stories, and maybe even through actions, I can explain a little bit more of the confusion or the struggle that I have or I have in common with the characters. So I guess that's what I learned from the course, and also learning from how to make moving images that is different from making just still images for now.
Thank you very much, Fion.
Thank you.
Congratulations for what you have achieved in just a very short amount of time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Fion. Now we have Sounak.
I share my screen. Yeah, it's there.
Yeah, it's working.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Shaunat Das, and I'm from Dhaka, Bangladesh, currently based in Den Bosch, Netherlands. I'm a multimedia artist exploring the intersection of media, technology, and my lived experiences. I have a background in photojournalism and documentary photography, along with a master's in visual arts and post-contemporary practice. Investigating human-machine nature is the fundamental belief to my practice. I believe these elements are intricately entangled, and through my art, I raise the questions about coexistence of technology and nature, their influence on our understanding of humans and the world, and how they shape our perceptions and experiences. My ongoing project, Leaving Home to Find Home, is an intimate exploration of displacement, belonging, and the fragile construction of identity as a minority, alien, in a technocratic world. It traces the emotional and bureaucratic labyrinth my wife and I navigate as we attempt to redefine and question home beyond borders, caught between structural violence and the elusive promise of freedom. I embark on a practice-based research incorporating thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, borrowing the conceptual framework of dialectic methodology. It focuses in what ways individuals be perceived as aliens when crossing a border marked by the invisible cultural forces. As we stand on the brink of intergalactic travel, does the notion of crossing time-space borders without permission from Earth challenge our understanding of sovereignty and exploration? As you hear, my thoughts are like fractals, excavating the project into 5 chapters. It began with the messages from the social media posts, frantic comments, and shared messages from friends and family in Bangladesh, convulsed in political turmoil. Since July 2024, the country has been unraveling its foundational ideals, collapsing, demanding reformation. Yet neither of us was physically and mentally present there. The digital world tethered us to the chaos, flooding our screens with guilt, obligation, and the suffocating demand to choose a side. These messages become another layer of the structural violence we sought to escape inescapable. Ghostly reminder of why we cannot return, yet also why we struggle to fully arrive. To begin anew, we had to surrender our identity cards, cultural anchors, and even our marriage certificate, which transformed from a symbol of union into a bureaucratic artifact. Classified as aliens, the absurdity of this term hit me when translating our documents revealed that, in the state's eye, we were seen as extraterrestrial. The images evoked the dissonance of existing between worlds, visible yet misunderstood, present but perpetually foreign. As we wait in a suspended animation, no work permit, yet taxes and fines arrive like clockwork. The ice, like time, dissolves. The paper remains. How long must we endure in this limbo? What does it mean to be deemed in a process indefinitely? Our current enclosure, a small studio, holds more than just our bodies. It cradles our conversations, our fears, our dreams. Gaston Baclard's The Poetics of Space resonates deeply here. How corner became sanctuaries, how walls absorb whisper hopes. Through performance, it examines the psychological weight of space, how we move within it, how it shapes our pursuit of freedom. Is confinement merely physical, or does it seep into the mind? Can a home be built in transition, or are we forever performing an imitation of belonging? The only portal to the outside is a single glass window, a frame for the everyday passing of cars, along with conversations under the clouds, stars, satellites, and the cosmic patterns. In an era where billionaires buy tickets to space while borders grow more fortified, this window becomes a site of rebellion. A photographic series captures constellations above our studio, while video maps planetary alignments over our roof. We are aware intergalactic travel is the next frontier, yet Earth remains a prison of passports and checkpoints. What does freedom mean when you need permission to cross a border but not to orbit Jupiter? When does home stop being a place and start becoming a choice? Finally, I find myself in the synthesis phase of the project, where ideas begin to take tangible form. In this stage, the interactive installations are coming to life, inviting the audience to engage and explore freedom, structural violence, and how it's constrained by bureaucracy, enclosure, and technocracy. The storylines collectively explores the global plus local paradox of migration, how the world promises mobility yet enforces containment, and how home is both lost and remade in the gaps between vulnerability and resilience. I'm working on building a few things like combi blinds right now for the installation and using text on stickers. One of the first part of the installation that I'm developing. The second part is creating this push and pull mechanism on an extended wall with boxes where you push these images and this text pops out from the walls. The third stage is where I'm creating this holographic interactive installation. Basically having this idea of the spaceship, creating this animated visuals right now, as you can see. The next installation is creating this augmented reality movement both interactive and also on an online screen, where the viewers are able to get the content from the durational video that I've been creating of the ice melting. Within the screen, I'm designing it as the cursor navigating through the context of the work. The next one is I'm creating a space within a space, the idea of my studio, where the visitors become a part of the performance or the installation, as the visitors' footsteps are also being played on the space itself. The next one is the idea of a diagonal LED strip, which takes over the space and gives an idea of a Morse code where audience are invited to sit down and decode the Morse code. The Morse code consists of our personal conversations that we have during the nights through the gazing of stars, and then the stars become manifested into this cubic room with entire walls with constellation images. Right now, I'm thinking of creating this graphic. So basically painting a space with this galactic information and having two short films, one on a rectangular platform and another on a screen dome-like sphere, basically. So you can see the right top image as an idea of the dome. And the next would be a sample of how I would like to see the other side.
Some of us cried. I stood in awe.
Nothing man-made had ever been so global. Everyone knew it was there. Suddenly, a future in space seemed possible.
So I would like to end my presentation with a quote from Philip K. Dick. Reality is that which, when you stop believing in it, doesn't go away. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sounak.
You're welcome.
Very multi-layered project, so it was difficult to present it in 10 minutes, but I think you managed pretty well. And also giving some glimpse into how you're, I mean, being a media artist, of course, is also important for you, like how you present it is as much as important as how you produce the work, right? I mean, there would be like a lot of points to discuss, but for me, like my question now goes a little bit in the intersection between the concept. So your story is also personal, but it's also very universal in terms of how you narrate it. And there is also like this, also in your case, like this sort of limbo, no, that comes out the work. So the space, this liminal space in which you feel trapped to some extent, right? So I would like to know more in your case. So how do you connect your personal story with these bigger political issues, and especially the way structural violence show up in both daily life and your emotions? Because it's also like a space that is creates very internal, both in you, both in the couple, but also projected to the outside, right?
Yeah, so I think the interesting thing that started with me was I thought of embodying myself as an alien. So how would I embody myself, or how I was becoming an alien at one point that really struck me, that started the whole concept. To move on, I thought that the space that I was embodying, I had to perform in certain ways. I had to take certain decisions. So again, the limbo. So every decision, so this method that I used as a dialectic, that every situation I had so many questions, but they never have any answers. And then again, they make more chapters, or they have more branches, more questions to them. So as it was getting bigger, I thought to use the metaphor as an alien to create this kind of structural violence that which can be put on as a metaphor. How to say that? Because as an extraterrestrial, when you go somewhere, you're always seen as someone outsider. So I thought of using this metaphor in the work of these cultural forces like paperworks, like I don't know if I should be using the term, but it really violates me when I hear of the word brown, because since coming here, the idea of black and white happens in all context or in pedagogy, but the brown doesn't exist in a pedagogy itself. So that really struck me in that sense of becoming brown. So this idea came into this kind of structural violence or shaping them into this kind of things, I would say.
Thank you, Sounak. I think that also in your work, also your approach, starting with the small story. We discussed a lot about this idea of small story. Probably you hate me for how many times I've been repeating this concept in the last months. But I think that like bringing it back to like this very, even the space that you are presenting is pretty small. But then talking about something that is much, much, much more structural and universal to some extent, I think, I mean, this helps somehow to also find a way to put into images, installation, performance, something that is highly abstract, because what you're talking about is very abstract, actually. Is the human attempt to make something abstract very concrete, we could say.
Yeah. This confinement, basically, this whole enclosure, and how this enclosure doesn't trap me in myself, but I always look to see the positive out of it. I think that's the most important thing that I've been always dealing with, my practice or project, to see this kind of limitation as not a limitation, but the positive or the outside of that limitation, I think.
Yes, I of course hope that I will manage to see this work installed
Yes.
soon, because I think that, I mean, this is a case in which your work really needs to be experienced in the space. I think it's pretty clear also following your presentation, because also it's like an embodied type of experience as well.
Yeah. Thank you. I hope for the best as well.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Sounak.
you.
Thank you, Sounak. It was great also to see your work and how it evolved in these months.
Thank
We'll
you.
take this occasion also to remind to the viewers that there is the possibility to comment on YouTube live. So if the public has any question, they can write in the chat. Now we have Roman.
Hello. 1 second. Can you see something?
Yep.
Perfect. Hello to everyone. My name is Roman. I'm an artist born in Russia and currently living in Amsterdam. And I think I will start this presentation from a highlight of my project, and it's a title, which is, "Please choose a photo I took of you for your tombstone." And this winter, I managed to go back to Russia. While I was there, I visited a cemetery on which I spent a considerable amount of my childhood. And while I was wandering in this cemetery this winter, and it was cold, it was the first time when my project started to form. And why? Because I was lost. I couldn't find any gravestones of my relatives. And it brought me to the first idea of creating a hidden object game, reflecting on my experience of trying to locate my relatives. And if speaking about personal story, then the grave I was trying so hard to find belonged to my aunt, who was killed when I was about 1 year old. So till the age of approximately 7, I would say, I would go to the cemetery almost daily. And it's not a surprise that my introduction to the medium of photography started right there in the cemetery. Currently, I'm working as a portrait photographer, and these portraits on the left were the first thing I came with to PhMuseum. And on the right, you will find Fion mummy portraits, realistic paintings of people faces, realistic painting of people faces on wooden panels attached to upper class mummies from Egypt. It's some form of funeral art. And the funny fact is that most of my clients are commenting on the fact that I make them look, in quotes, of course, dead. But it's a good time to remind you the title of my project. Please choose a photo I took of you for your tombstone. While researching the history of portraits, I stumbled upon the tool from the 19th century, which is a head clamp, helping for the exposure of the photos. And the interesting turn in that at the moment, right now, this tool is almost demonized as the thing used for the post-mortem photography, which is not exactly the true, of course. Some other thing from the 19th century. And by the way, with a colleague of mine, we are working on remaking one of these clamps. And what I'm also interested in is the freezing and stillness that can be achieved with this mechanism, as it almost like accompanies my experience of being a child playing in the cemetery. So, and as I was speaking, some other thing from 19th century I'm interested in is a technique called etching. In recent years, it was also sub-invented as a photo etching. But what I've done is that I started to experiment with a material called polycaprolactone, which is a biodegradable polyester polymer coming in granules. Out of these granules, I've made a relatively flat surface on top of which I could start printing portraits I've done previously and start basically experimenting. So the whole other venture of my project is my own cemetery. I figured out that while living in Amsterdam, the chances of getting an apartment are quite slim. So I was thinking, why not to get my own cemetery? One thing is that cemeteries are always in some way or other way walled off from a mainland. On the left is a picture of a canal in front of the cemetery, which is closest to my own house in Amsterdam. Not wanting to stop there, I also decided to make a take in the same waters on a Greek myth of Orpheus, which is directly exploring the topic of death. And the volunteer and a big thank you was my friend Maes. In continuation of my cemetery plan, almost like a business plan, I'm willing to provide my clients with a very special urns. I picked up my long time ago started project where I'm working with the famous Dutch blue delfts, Dutch ceramics, which became a symbol of this country. With a Dremel machine, I'm taking off the blue glaze. And for me, after all, to a certain extent, it can be very peculiar and odd attempt of integration. If you're speaking about the cemetery, we should not forget about the gravestones, marble ones, of course. And for them, I would definitely go to Italy. For now, I had two small pieces in order to make a photo on the right. And here you can see how I basically envision myself coming back to Holland from my trip to Italy. I would like to conclude my presentation with some photos I'm doing in parallel while researching and working on this project. For example, on the left, it's a hand made out of the polycaprolactone holding some earth. As at the moment during the funerals, when people throw it on top of the coffin. And some flowers for the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roman. Thank you also for the flowers at the end. Very nice way to end your presentation. Now, also in your case, indeed, the work is multi-layered. You had this epiphany with the title. It's very interesting that your work starts from a title, right? Usually the title is what comes after at some point. And I remember when you came with this title, with this question, somehow, there was like a very interesting reaction from all the class, right? Because it's something that is pretty deep to think about. We maybe don't think about it. But then when you think about it, maybe, you can have like a sort of trigger, right? And I'm very fascinated on how this question started, like this broad research that went in different directions in your case. And for me, it's also interesting, like how you, to some extent, questioned your practice a lot during the masterclass, right? You're being a portrait photographer. What does it mean? You even wrote a text about it at some point, and I thought it was like very interesting to read like your self reflection on what does it mean by a portrait? What does it mean to photograph someone else, right? So in this case, I have a question that maybe you don't have an answer or a specific answer, but I would like to hear your reasoning about it a bit more, a bit longer, which is very much like, since your research is not done yet, is not finished yet, I guess, but for what you have learned so far, what does it mean for an image, in your opinion, to outlive the person it represents, right? Especially in this time that is shaped very much by a personal precarity, I would say, and digital performance as well.
Salvatore, I didn't expect that you're going to betray me in such a way.
I betray you because I know you can give a very nice reasoning to this question.
No, but like, yeah, if I understood, like, your question is about like, how do I deal with the fact of representation, right?
Yes,
Like,
basically.
the other.
Yes. And how, through this process that you engaged during the masterclass, what is your take about this idea of an image that outlives the person that represents, right? Especially now you're bringing this idea of after death, after life, no?
I have
Not
to say
after
that
death.
the whole transmedia approach, that's what helps me mainly because as you already mentioned yourself, but of course, like, a portrait photography is a commercial part of my practice. While through transmedia approach, I can, if not to make a portrait, but like tell a story through different mediums, through different ways. And in this case, the portrait becomes something else than just like simple representation of someone, right? Like, I'm telling the story. So like, I'm somehow almost like scanning this person or the story around this person, and giving my viewer different approaches to him or to her or to them. So I guess the answer to your question is in the title of our workshop.
If you manage to turn it around, great.
Yes.
I knew you would manage. No, but thank you very much also for the reflection that came during the whole masterclass. I think that we had very interesting conversations also about what does it mean, like even questioning photography itself, the representative power of photography per se, right? And then connected with other media that somehow, as you say, might reinforce or bring different layers to this image that in the end is what stays, no? In your case, what you see on a grave, for instance, is what stays, is one image, right? But then there is so much behind that. And I think that it's interesting how you are dissecting all these elements that somehow constitute this image and then branching them out into different stories somehow.
And thank you for your guidance.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Roman.
Thank you, Roman. Now the stage is for Debbie.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, hello everybody. My name is Debbie Castro. I'm Irish, living in London in the UK. Through taking part in this PH Masterclass on Transmedia Storytelling, it opened my eyes to like where photography is and going, looking at everybody's work and also how expansive storytelling can be. I was going to start off with a new project, but I realized through doing this that actually I wasn't finished with my old one and that I could build on that more. So I'm really grateful for that. This project is called Age is a Privilege Unless You Forget. And it began with a very personal story or personal discovery, which was my father's photo archive. But unfortunately, when I found it, he was in the later stages and deep in his journey with Alzheimer's. So it was interesting finding the images and working through them because I was trying to understand the position and where he was with the illness, but also, move through my grief, basically. So what I suppose through doing this masterclass is what I realized is this isn't just a story about Alzheimer's, but it's actually more so about grief. And I guess that's what the underlying story is. And I suppose I want people to connect with. And I suppose I was trying to do a whole pile of different things, and I kind of was thinking big. I was thinking of websites, and I was thinking of all these different types of media. But it came back down, and I kind of had this like eureka moment that it should be like a deconstructed book. Because again, with the book, there was something that wasn't feeling right if it was really bound. So then through working through all of these workshops, then it was like, okay, maybe what I should do is deconstruct it. So this is still very much in a working progress. I realized as well that really I have the ideas in my head, but I find it very difficult to put it down on the page, and I needed to work with somebody to be able to help me, like a graphic designer. So again, this is at the starting process of it, but it's been really, really great. Okay, so yeah, as I was saying, then this is not just a story about Alzheimer's. It's the deeper I move through it, I realized that it's about grief. And obviously with grief is beautiful and the ugly sides of it. And like memory, it can't be contained in a single format. And that's why I started to work on it across the media. So this is not meant to be preserved on a shelf. It's meant to be touched, folded, torn, soaked with emotion. It invites the reader, maybe I say the participant, to move through the deconstructed book, whatever way they want to. There's no beginning, middle, or end. Just like memory, it drifts and returns. So just to explain that a little bit more, there's going to be different parts of the book to this. Now, with these images, or this archive, I should explain, that I found on my dad's, I kind of moved through the grief of understanding that relationship. And sometimes Alzheimer's is considered a dementia, like two deaths or two griefs. So it was kind of like working through that grief because he's still with us. And then I'm sure when he dies, that's another grief. So finding his images, I started just to manipulate them according to how I was feeling at that point. So whether all the different emotions. It's going to be in a folder kind of thing. And then within that, there's going to be letters. So I'm going to have letters that aren't just mine, but I'm going to invite people who are also going through this process of grief to write letter to their loved ones or whatever they want to do. So there's going to be 10 of those from people all around the world. And I'm wrapping 10 of the images up within that letter. So again, that's something that's contained, that needs to be opened up, that's a memory. And that different people, no matter what stage of grief you are or where you want to tackle this project, you can come in at it. I've just selected a few of the images that I manipulated just to give you a little example of my photographs. So as I say, inside the box, there are multiple elements. There's my father's images printed on a varied paper textures that I have manipulated through my grief. There are the 10 letters. Then as we move through, sorry, I'm going quite fast through these images. Then I did a poster which contains those 10 photographs. There's going to be tools within the box as well for the reader, the participant, then to use to be able to manipulate the images that I've put in. So I've put in unaltered photographs, which are actually Dad's images. So I've chose them for, there's a woman called Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and she has 7 kind of like stages that we go through in grief. So this is a handkerchief. And again, this is something else then that's tactile that somebody can bring around with them, use if they need to. But so it's denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, shocks, and testing. And they're going to be inside envelopes, which people can then manipulate as they so wish. These are the photos. I'm just conscious of the time. So yeah. So I guess this is all like about visual memory. The letters carry the emotional weight. The textures and tools are tactile ways of processing grief. The letters fold. These are narrative too, and it's a storytelling through sensation, I'm guessing. There's no beginning, middle, or end. You can pick up any piece. And I guess presenting it live here on YouTube like becomes another layer of storytelling. Yeah, this is it. This project is about memory, but it's also how we choose to remember. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening. And yeah.
Thank you very much, Debbie. Was very interesting for me to go through your process of thinking this project, because it took some discussion. It took a while to get to what you're presenting today.
Yeah.
Which to me is very interesting. And as I told you already, maybe it's a question that I will repose to you because it might be interesting for the audience to hear it. You start from, it's an artist book, right? So it's something that has a very specific design, very specific structure, and it's meant also to be interactive, right? So to some extent, it kind of falls apart to the normal understanding of a book, which is an object that you browse, but you interact with, but with the idea of browsing, reading, and so on and so forth, right? In your case, the book is, first of all, is fragmented, as the narrative that you're bringing is fragmented.
Yeah.
But also you require an intervention, right? Or like you invite for an intervention, which is something pretty strong because, it's not like an everyday activity to interact, destroy even to some extent a book, no? And to me, what I find fascinating is also the fact that you are inviting the audience to interact and to change your personal archive. So the personal archive of your family, right? It's a very strong action. How do you feel about that? Because I think that, of course, there is like the idea and there is like the production of the work and the book. But then how do you think it makes you feel like people that you don't even know, like strangers somehow interacting with these very personal images and even deteriorating, intervening, distracting them somehow?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And you alluded to that a little bit, and that kind of like, yeah, I thought about that a lot since. But do you know what? I think with this grief, and especially with this Alzheimer's, and what I found is that sometimes you have quite negative feelings, and I think it allows people and gives them permission by using my archive that it's okay to do that, and it's okay to feel these feelings, and we're all in this together. So I think if somebody can use this as a way of like tearing up or manipulating or destructing, but they're moving and getting deeper into themselves, I think that is successful. So I feel okay with it, and I'm sure Dad would too. Oh yeah. Yeah. Does that answer your question, do you think, Salvatore?
Sure. I think it's very courageous also because it's like somehow puts yourself and, even your family into a vulnerable position, right? Because anyway, you're giving out something and you have no control over it, which is something interesting in my opinion, and also somehow reflect the conceptual background of the work per se. So yeah, I think, I was very fascinated when you presented this idea because it's something that is not so common, I would say. And also the book for you, correct me if I'm wrong, it has also another function, which could become like something that can be shown elsewhere, right?
Absolutely.
So it becomes a sort of traveling exhibition to some extent. Can you maybe tell us a bit more about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I haven't quite grown that part of it yet, but I would love the idea that I'm able to send this off to different places and then they'll be able to manipulate whatever way and then be able to put it onto the wall or curate it. Because again, like from images from the book, like my idea was that you can tear out the photographs and use whichever one you want that is meaningful to you at that time. So I would love to grow it, that would be something. Yeah, absolutely. That is an amazing idea. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Debbie, and good luck with the production of the book.
Thank you. Thank you. And I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you to Rosa and thank you to Giuseppe and everybody in PhMuseum and the group. Sorry, I didn't mean to put in on you.
No problem. No, thank you very much. I really looking forward to browsing this book and interacting with it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think it's very nice to see how also a book can be transmedia, because sometimes we don't think about books in this sense. So thank you, Debbie, for sharing your work with us. And now we have Darmyn.
Hello. I'll share. You can see? Yep, great. I just want to thank Salvatore, Rosa, PhMuseum, and my classmates. It's been a great journey of discovery. So I'll present my project. So hello to everyone. I'm a filmmaker, photographer, and film editor with a background in traditional cinematic storytelling. I joined this transmedia class seeking new ways to explore how narratives can be expanded and experienced by audiences. My work is rooted in exploration and experimentation. So knowing where I'm going or knowing how I'll present the work has been my biggest challenge. While I'm still working through the creative process, I know I have been given some great tools to think about. So with that, I'll get into this project. So it's called Las supersticiones de mi madre, which translates to my mother's superstitions. The work recreates the superstitions which I once thought bizarre as a child, but now have come to embrace as a form of love and protection, as well as incorporating a lot of fear. This work in progress series incorporates documentary, archive, and hopefully conceptual photography with some recreation. This page that you see here, the egg cleansing ritual, it involves the cleansing of negative energy using an egg, usually performed on a child or the elderly. In this next sample, not on Good Friday. It's about a superstition that my mother had that bathing on Good Friday, about not bathing on Good Friday, because doing so would be unfortunate. My mother would tell us in her delicate way that basically we would turn into a fish. Obviously, this terrified me as a child. As the years passed, I remember telling the kids at school. The roars of laughter sent me into a rage when I found out her truths were hers only. Years later, when I asked my mother about it, she laughed and said, it's just a superstition passed down to her by her mother. She said she never tested it, but wasn't going to, just in case. When thinking about this work, I wonder where these superstitions came from. The Indigenous, African, and Spanish mix makes it hard to find out, but there's a bit of narrative and research that I've started doing, which I'm hoping that expands the work and also my thinking behind these superstitions. So in continuing this series, I've tried to find connections between my beliefs of what is real and what is not, what we see and what is hidden. I continue to play with images and pull ideas and narratives to move forward. My intention for these images, when finalized, is to hopefully exhibit them with an aim of having viewers reflect on photos which would hopefully trigger their stories or superstitions if they have any. I'd like to have them written down and so that I could begin to create more images from these stories and hopefully create a book. This is long-term thinking. Taking the superstition further, I decided to focus on the egg cleansing images, which you saw earlier, and make a film out of it. What I produced was an 11-minute experimental dance film that reinterprets the egg cleansing ritual. Oh, excuse me. The dancer in the film is the embodiment of the egg. The mother, believing so strongly in this ritual, calls on the spirit well, unaware, to cleanse the negative energy within the child. The more the mother rubs the egg on the child, the more the dancer becomes ill, transferring the illness to the egg, the dancer. And here I'll play a sample of the film. One of the original ideas I had was to have the film play as a single channel video in a deconsecrated space. I love this idea that the space has gone through a ritual itself in order to cease being a sacred space. Who says when something is sacred or not? But now, since the film has been completed, I see so many possibilities, and also with the knowledge that I've learned from Transmedia class, to have this film broken up into multimedia channel piece, sensorial experience with accompanied sound design. At this stage, I find myself, oh gosh, sorry. Well, basically, yeah, this is the point that I find myself in at the moment. So I think I'd mentioned last time that I felt like I wish I was beginning at this point, because now I'm ready to take on all these tools that we've been taught. So I feel like I'm in a really good place to continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Darmyn, for your presentation. It was very clear. Also, in your case, I think it was very interesting the fact that you started from a work that you were already developing, but then you try to expand it and to see like also what kind of other narrative layers could be added to it. And I'm very impressed of what you managed to achieve, again, in this short amount of time, because in the end, it seems a lot, but it's not. And I find also very interesting this idea of recurring to speculation, because I mean also makes sense in terms of also your story, but at the same time also creating this tension between like a performance, a dance performance, but also the acting. I mean, I don't know if maybe I lost. I lost it during the presentation, but of course also the acting, your daughter is acting in the video, that in my opinion gives also a very different understanding of it when you know that information, right? Because it's just like generational somehow transitioning, right? And to me, I would be interesting to know a bit more like how do you see the connection between the photographic piece that is already like strong per se and this video. So how would you see like they to be linked? Because of course the photographic side of the project somehow attempts to symbolize, finding like symbolic understanding of these superstitions, let's say, while the video does the same, but at the same time focuses on a very specific story and merges it with like this bodily somehow experience, no? So how do you see the connection between these two approaches in the project?
I think that's a good question because you know, that's been going on in my head the whole time. I think that it's funny because I started with the photographs and like recreating some of these moments. But it's funny because as I go deeper, like doors open because it's like, this is about my mother, but it's also about me and about, you know, the memory, the love that I've, you know, she disguised these fears through love and protection. And it was only since I had my children that I came back to these superstitions because I don't have her superstitions, but I realized I've developed my own. So I love the idea in the video that, you know, it's me and my daughter in there. And that was kind of unintentional, you know, it just worked out that way. So it's funny how it worked out. But I feel like the video format or even breaking it up into different screens, it lends itself to playing my mother's superstition. Like I can indulge in that space. Whereas the photographs for me are turning into something of not a critique, but a question about what does it mean to have these beliefs and how I almost, in a way, make fun of it with some of the juxtapositions. You know, I mean, I don't think I'm there yet because I've started, but there's a narrative that makes sense to me. I don't know if it makes sense to anybody else. But as for presenting them together, it's the question that I can't answer yet. And I think it's because I'm still in the process. I'm still trying to figure out what the photographs are trying to do. But I feel like with the video pieces, I know what to do with those because that's another thinking. That's the superstition thinking. So I'm not sure if that answers, but I'm on a mission to figure it out.
Thank you very much, Darmyn. No, I think that it's a very interesting direction, like to somehow use one medium to give like a sort of criticism or context, etc., and then the other medium to maybe go a bit deeper into one aspect of it. So I'm unfolding different like layers of the same story, but also different type of reflection. Also because I guess the audience as well can sense a different experience depending on which medium they are confronted with. So I think, I mean, it's a very interesting way to indulge into a certain type of story that is also per se multi-layered, especially superstition. Again, we go into something that is pretty abstract somehow, right? So it's even hard to kind of visualize a superstition or like to symbolize it. So I think that the mix between these different visual strategies kind of helps to dig a bit deeper into what different aspect of it can be.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Darmyn.
Thank you, Darmyn. Now it's time for Joseph.
You all see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Great. Hello, my name is Joseph Desler Costa. I'm a photographer, an artist, and a educator based in Milan and also in Brooklyn, New York. The work I'll present today takes form as an exhibition that I've been working on over the past 6 months or so and I'll be taking you through this sort of I designed sort of a virtual exhibition through this imagined space that houses the installation. Before we do that, I just want to thank Salvatore, Rosa, the PhMuseum, of course, all the group here. It's been really illuminating experience, kind of learning to see my work in a different way and see sort of connections and gaps and potential that I didn't see before. I'm going to read this little statement I wrote, and then we'll begin sort of the tour. The constant temporal shift between screen and physical world has affected my ability to not only occupy the present, but also to ever feel satisfied with it. In an era marked by both hyperconnectivity and hyper-isolation, just like Heaven Can Wait is an examination of the culture of endless information, possibility, and commerce we inhabit. The series serves as a mirror to our smoothed-over, technological-driven psyches, blurring the lines between individual identity, consumerism, and purchasing power. The works fragment narratives and fold commercialism inward by adopting the sleek rhetorics of visual advertising, cinema, design, and prompt-generated imagery. The works question how ego and identity are shaped by commerce, desire, algorithms, and the ever-increasing reach of machine learning technologies. So this is sort of where we begin and walk in. The exhibition is broken into 3 rooms. And you can see there's wall pieces with some sort of sculptural elements, and then this larger sort of scaffolding kind of piece. So we'll just kind of walk through. We have our virtual tour guide in Blender. Her name was Francesca. So that's Francesca that will be appearing kind of to give us scale through the exhibition. And again, I'll start with the wall pieces. Most of my works in the past have been printed dye sublimation on aluminum on this ultra sort of very high gloss surface, which is very reflective, and you can see sort of yourself in the room reflected in it. And I like that surface because it's also very reminiscent to the screens, especially sort of like the smartphone screens, this really high gloss illuminate surface. The other thing I am really interested in, and I've come to basically over the time we've been working in this class, is thinking about materiality of the images. And so I've started to think about working with textile and different materials that would be integrated into the images. And these things you see here, they're like fringes. And I don't know if you can see closely, they're actually fabric fringes that are braided, kind of like the things that might be hanging off the bottom of an old style sofa or something like that. So the fringes kind of obscure the image surface in different ways. And I really like the idea of sort of like this kind of layer, another layer that's between us and the images. And a lot of the images themselves are multiple exposure images. So everything kind of has this fleeting and floating away kind of feel to them. And these are different details of that shot, these series. There's our tour guide again. And this is a different section of wall pieces. And again, these are fringes. And this time in this particular piece, I'm really interested in trying to work with also being able to print or use gradients on the fringes themselves that are hanging. Another thing also that happens because they're printed on aluminum, I can laser cut or machine cut into the image surface. So the holes you see in the eye and the eyebrows of this cat, for example, reveal their cutouts, and behind it there's another layer of aluminum. So that silver you're seeing is just an aluminum layer. I also imagine as someone would walk by these pictures, the fringes may sway a bit, they may move a bit with, depending how many people are walking by. And I really like that sort of feeling of them too. And then some of the fringes are designed in a way that they mimic and hint at sort of different graphic elements. And here's a close-up detail of what those fringes may be. And again, they're made out of cloth and fabric. And I've kind of been doing some research. There's a lot of different kind of braids that can be done in these kind of different fringes. And that's how they would be integrated like directly into the frame. And again, they serve as this sort of layer between us looking, but I feel like they also had this decorative element and oddly this weird sort of luxury element, which my work really is about sort of that, the illusion of luxury and desire and those different things. So as we move into the room again, then there's this piece that's built on scaffolding. And this piece has double-sided prints in it and also has elements cutouts in it that you can see through or see other parts of the exhibition through. And I'm also really interested in sort of these ideas of labor that are behind image making and commerce, all these sort of elements and how images are actually made, right? Because mostly things are on screens and then there is some sort of amount of labor that needs to be made for them to become objects. Here's different details of that scaffolding. And again, you can see through different cuts and stuff, you can see through different portions of it. And there's a ladder in it that sort of references that. And the scaffolding is on wheels too, and just to add this sort of gear heaviness, this sort of modular quality. There's another piece in this same room. This is text pieces that are based that come or elements from a chat I was having with ChatGPT about creating prompts. And the prompts are actually etched or burned into the glass surface. So they're not on the image surfaces. These frames actually have glass. And there are three pieces of a conversation that I pulled from that I was having with ChatGPT. One says surreal yet clean and intentional multiple exposure photograph. The next one says lips intertwined, tongues gently touching and overlapping, intimate but tasteful. And the other one says hands partially hidden yet clearly visible within a mass of thick blonde, brunette, and red hair strands. And this view allows you to see sort of that it's glass. And I've actually started doing this. You can actually, the way I'm going to have the text into the glass, it actually gets burned into the glass and it leaves this almost burned look as well. And then there's the sort of generic sort of image behind it. I think when I think of like imageless images, I think of sky and clouds. So that's sort of the idea, the emptiness of that allows sort of the image to come in. Continuing through that room, come to another more sculptural piece. This piece is based on, I was also working on it, having a conversation with ChatGPT about a cinematic piece I wanted to imagine about a car driving really fast and about a driver. And suddenly in this conversation, these air freshener pieces appeared in my conversation. And then the conversation with ChatGPT started really moving towards thinking about, what these things meant, what importance did these things have. So on the side of these pieces, I'm going to have that whole conversation with ChatGPT about the cinematic piece we were imagining together, and then why we got stuck on these air fresheners and what the significance of them are. Here's a little snippet from the conversation that is on it, and I'm in bold. I say, how do the air fresheners fit into the scene? What do they say about the driver? They feel a little out of place, so maybe we can explore that. They answer, beautiful instinct. You're absolutely right. Pine tree air fresheners do feel a little out of place in a luxury introspective setting. And that contrast makes them incredibly rich with symbolic potential. And I ask, what is that potential? And they answer, air freshener as symbol, sentimental disruption in a controlled space. So that's a little snippet that would appear, again, all around the full conversation, which is pages and pages, is all printed on the edge of these things. And they would be to this scale, pretty much the same materials that the real ones are, and then sort of suspended from that same sort of gear hardware. Walking into the next room, there's another bunch of wall pieces and another panel This time it's more of a dressing kind of panel, but made up of the same thing with sort of laser cut, or they're actually water cut pieces appearing on either side. So as we, ciao, aspetta. My son just got home from school, sorry. Sì, aspetta un attimo. And then you, yeah, it's sort of the same as the other room. You go and you can see from either side. And as we look through, we can see sort of the pieces on the other side of the room. Again, made of that heavy sort of material referencing sort of labor and structure. And they're modular and on wheels. And then another area, room of imagery. Some of the images have interventions, others not, sculpture interventions. The ones with more, with the fringes on them, they hang out a little more from the wall. Now my dog's here too. Everyone's arriving right when it's time to present. Anyway, these are details walking through that room. Again, other pieces that work like that, with the sort of braids, the different textures, and the hang. I haven't made these in real, the images are all made, but I haven't made the fringe pieces yet. I'm working on that with I have someone that is a fashion designer that's going to help me sort of figure out sort of the materiality of those. But I really like the idea that they could kind of sway and be this sort of lightness and this lighter elements in them. Different detail of that. And again, anywhere you see sort of silver elements, those are laser cuts in the print themselves, revealing the aluminum behind. There's another detail from that room. And some of these works are very new. Some are from a book of mine that came out last year. And something I've also really learned to understand over working in this period that we've all been together is I found that my work is very modular. And I kind of really, I like this idea of one project fading out into another project rather than a project ending and a new one beginning. There's this sort of notion that like it's this continuous work rather than a project ending. And that's oddly reassuring rather than having to like finish something and start something new. It's like this fade in out kind of thing. This is the last room, and this would be a video room. This is also very much in progress, but I imagine this room would have 4 different screens with those sort of LED panels you recognize maybe from like the duty-free shops at airports or on like advertising structures. So I would have one very large wall and then 3 other screens. And you can see on the right here, the screen has a computer screen on it, and that will have a conversation happening that I'm having with some machine learning software. And it's sort of about all the stuff I've been thinking about, asking about sort of these ideas of desire, of labor, of luxury, of purchasing power, of influence, of who really owns their own desires. And so this is this video is all being built with Blender. It's not actual filmed video. It's all sort of, it's not it's built. It's not prompt based. And then I have a short sample of how that video would work. I think it's this. And this piece also would have sound. And every time the computer comes in where you see the type coming up, you would hear sort of the keyboard sound of someone typing or something. And each particular scene would have its own sound effects relevant to the scene. But I haven't even begun the sound yet because I'm still working. It's very time consuming, generating the videos in Blender. And that's my virtual exhibition. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joseph, and thanks, Francesca, also for guiding us through the virtual exhibition. No, I find it very interesting the way you presented it. So, like with a digital guided tour somehow, because of course, I mean, your work needs the type of presentation in the sense that you talk about materiality and also the way you've been rethinking also your images. Some work that were already produced, some work as new. But the way you retold, I mean, after several conversations we had, how to bring this material aspect to the images that become something else, right? In your work, I think this way of presenting it gives a sense on where you're going and what kind of impact it can have also in an exhibition space. I'm very happy by the fact that, yeah, I remember like one of our first conversations during the masterclass was very much about this idea of yeah, like materiality, images, but also in this frame of consumerism, as you explained in your presentation. And I think it's very interesting how you open up yourself to rethink your work. So, which is something always very difficult to do to some extent. And for me, it would be maybe interesting to go a bit deeper for our audience into the question that basically what you're doing is challenging the idea of photography as a pure visual medium, no? Because you make it performative by adding elements, by creating like, even like reasoning on the surface, right, in which the photograph is printed. But also these fabrics, these textiles that you are using, the covers and bales, but at the same time, you know, makes like difficult, harder to understand or to see the image, right? So also in relation to this theme of consumerism and the physical trace of what we consume, what do you think that how do you think that your project challenges this idea of photography as a purely visual medium?
I think that's a great question. It's something I think through a lot. I feel that for me, photography is so not physical. And of course, as we move forward with technology, it becomes less physical. And the way I digest photography, it's so fleeting, right? It's so like I see it and it's gone, or I swipe and it's gone, and I move and it's gone. So for me, by trying to figure out a way to add these elements that ground it to like earth or something, or these physical materials that allow it to occupy space, I feel is something that allows me to let it stay, to have its staying power, right? I'm sure it's happening to everyone. You upload an image to Instagram and you see it for a second, then it's already gone or something like that. This like way that images are just like disappearing. And I think it's oddly like sort of existential, this need for them to be physical for me. Because it's the medium I work with. I'm often honestly very jealous of painters because they work with material, and like we work, you know, with X's and O's, and now even less, you know, and so I think that's sort of that urge to make things physical. And I like also this idea of production, like a car rolling off an assembly line. So the aluminum and the material references that, and the fabrics maybe represent like luxury items or different things like that. And I think the way they challenge commercialism, and I don't know, I've been working sort of in this theme for a while. And as an artist, sometimes I start to say what I hear people saying about my work rather than saying what my own work is about, which is a weird sort of trip up to happen. I think there's this weird idea that sometimes I fall too far on that end where my image actually just looks like a commercial image, right? And I know that's a dangerously fine line. I just like this idea that if I could have that, if I get that, then there's a better version of me out there, right? That idea, that promise that commercialism gives us, or that all this media we digest gives us. It's like, it's really sad, but it's like also this oddly, yeah, spiritual idea. There's a better version of me out there if I could just get those pants, you know, or like something like that.
I mean,
Yeah.
to me, also another interesting aspect about the way you are thinking about your work and the way in which your work can live in the physical space. It's also the fact that often the subject of your images are ephemeral. So you build them using, for instance, I don't know, 3D editing softwares, etc. But there is this type of hyperrealism in your images anyway, even if they are 3D generated, for instance, right? And then bringing them into the space and also making the photograph per se a performative somehow piece questions also like this idea of how we consume images, and not only images but even the products that are part of the production chain that you were mentioning about. So I think this duplicity, it's interesting how you transformed like this conceptual background into a possible display for your work.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joseph.
Everyone. Cheers.
Thank you, Joseph. Now we have Ignacio.
Hi, how are you? Well, first, thank you, everyone. I will miss you a lot, and I would like that this keeps longer and keeps sharing our thoughts, ideas, and projects. We have the WhatsApp group, so I hope we keep in touch. Well, for the people from YouTube, hi, I'm Ignacio. I'm from Spain, and I have been working in Kickflip. Let me check if the sound is correct. Kickflip, yes. Kickflip is a video game about the teenagers' years. The project aims to offer new perspective on the everyday experience of adolescents through the personal history of a group of friends. All of these stories converge in a small town skate park, and then the narrative unfolds with photographs, phone documents, and with recordings to explore themes such as academic field, peer pressure, substance abuse, sexual discovery, or family relationships. All of these projects materialize on this installation. Is an interactive installation where you can sit and play the game with the gamepad here. So this is a little overview of how the actual stories looks like. These are sequences in the game. And you see, like, for example, here, this is part of the Maria's history. She talked about hip hop music and how that music helped her to feel like a powerful girl and go over some issues. So these are the kind of perspective or new perspective that I try to bring in with the personal stories of this group of friends. This is another installation with it. And well, for a little overview, I would like to play this video, not fully because it can be too long, but you will see how the video games works. This is a really early version, but you will see how you navigate through the skate park and then you reach the stories, you can trigger them and keep digging into the stories.
Este era el skatepark de Tudela, recién construido en el 2003. Fue en ese momento cuando empezó nuestra adolescencia. Patinar no era un deporte, era algo que tenía que ver con nuestra identidad. Solíamos hacerlo en las calles y plazas de la ciudad. La gente de Tudela se asustaba y llamaba a la policía.
Había algo de rap femenino en los 2000, pero era muy poco, y yo recuerdo que sobre todo el mayor referente era la Mala Rodríguez, Suga Buga y Ariana Puello. Porque cantar ese tipo de música que era como tan narcisista, tan flipado, tan de no sé qué, solamente cantar esas canciones poniéndome en lugar de esa gente me hacía sacar una parte de mí que yo no estaba acostumbrada a sacar, porque yo siempre he sido como muy tímida, muy para adentro. Entonces cantar esto me daba como una especie de fuerza o de poder que no tenía.
Well, during this year, I have been using some Miro boards as notebooks, and then with help of Salvatore, I was thinking a lot about several topics, especially about narrative and about non-linearity and about how a circular narrative can work in this project. Also about what's the meaning of a game, what is play, and how this can enchase a photographic narrative. So, well, this is one of the Miro boards, like for example here, that I also try to understand this idea of audience analysis, in this case with kids, that is one of the reference. And well, you can imagine that it's a long project. So I do apply this to Keepflip for the design notes of how the video games work, what is the mechanics that can give some meaning as a way to use interactivity as a metaphor. And well, the last month I've been working on on some maps where the stories triggers that I am still working on. And also I was working on a playthrough on kind of a script to discover how it really works at the end. Yep. That's Keepflip. I hope I keep working on it and finish the project soon.
Thank you very much, Ignacio. I think, I say this several times to you, I'm pretty impressed on the amount of work you put in this project so far, and also what you managed to develop during the masterclass. It's pretty inspiring. And I think also it's very interesting the way you are talking about like a personal story, because in the end, this person, like, again, this micro world that starts from your hometown and the adolescence and what you experience, also through the experience of the group of people that surround you, but then you manage to, on a side, make it universal, so expanding it, because it's the story of many people. But at the same time, you decided to use the medium of the game to present photography and video, which of course, in a way, suggests and invites for an interactive way to explore this narratives that you're presenting, right? And I think, of course, this encompasses a lot of work and development, because there is, of course, the storytelling, narrative perspective, but there is also the design and the mechanics you were talking about. So for me, my question would be, maybe it's simple, but at the same time, very difficult. Why a video game? So what do you think that this medium can bring to the story?
I think that video games give us as photographers or artists a huge toolbox to tell stories in different ways. And at least for me, tell a story in a different way is to find new faces to the stories, right? So they are their own. It's not this idea of the message is the medium or the medium is the message. Is the way that you tell the message can change the message itself, can trigger different emotions, and at the end it's a way to open new doors in our medium. So in the case also of photography, I feel really attracted to how the own player or the viewer can be engaged and can make own experience playing the game, right? And also, I really like this idea of that the game design can serve as a metaphorical tool for make deeper the photo the concept of the game, right? Like book designers try to their own layout, the paper, the texture, the color can add these layers of meaning. I think that the game mechanics are like a huge field to explore for photographers and artists. I don't know if I have explained myself.
I think so. At least it was clear to me. But yeah, and also I think that there are this notion of interactivity, non-linearity, etc., that of course are proper of the medium that you use, to develop the work, which is also very interesting because it allows the audience to reconstruct the story, not following a definite path in a way,
Yes.
which also gives a different type of experience, of course, to the story.
Yes, and also the main mechanic in this game is the movement and the trigger button. At the end, this is the same than skating, movement and triggering things. And at the end, this is what means to be a teenager in some metaphorical way, right?
Totally. Thank you very much, Ignacio, and I can't wait to play this game. Yes.
Thank you, Ignacio. Well, I already played, but I'm looking forward to play with the new version of the game. So
yeah, the final
soon.
version.
Yeah. Thanks again. Now we have Lynse.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi everyone. I'm Lindsay. Today I'm going to be presenting my project Myrtle Vista. So I will share my screen. And then can everyone see a preview presentation? Yes, okay. So like I said, my name is Lindsay. This is a project that I've been working on since 2021. I wrapped up the photographic portion of the project last October. So I'm just going to give some quick details about the project and then just show some photos from the project. It is primarily a photographic project using analog photography. And the project is about my grandfather, but also my grandparents' house. These are my dad's parents. So this is a place that I've been able to go to usually once a week, but a lot of times like multiple times a week between like 2007 and like 2024. So it's a place that means a lot to me. And then the component about my grandfather, he had dementia. I was one of his caretakers the last few years of his life. So the project is sort of chronicling that. And then also my grandparents' house. The house is like not only a setting, but it acts as a protagonist. So the house is not only like the backdrop and like driver of the story, but it is like a key character in the story. And then some of the main, I guess, like themes or narrative devices. My grandparents' orange tree is a motif that reoccurs in my work a lot. I must have like 100 pictures of this tree. I'm just really fascinated by the fact that like one, it's something that comes to fruition in the wintertime, and that also just the cyclical nature of the tree. Um, and then sort of the aging process or like memory sort of declining through like my grandfather's aging process specifically. Um, and then sort of key inspirations. I really enjoy Latoya Ruby Fraser's work, particularly her early work, The Notion of Family, was sort of a reference for this project. And then I'm also thinking about like recently I've been looking at William Eggleston's work, who is like an earlier color photographer, and how he used color and how he made these sort of interesting photos about like the everyday. Um, I sort of think of this project as like as a memorialist rather than a documentarian. Although some people would call me a documentarian. I don't necessarily think of myself that way, but and I believe that's it. If I'm looking down, I'm looking at like notes to make sure I mention everything that I want to mention. Oh, and the last thing is I've been working, so the sort of like transmedia portion of this project is I've been working on like a short film that is sort of I see it as like a story like through my grandparents' house. Um, that's Film is like a new medium for me. I primarily think of myself as a photographer. Um, so sort of using the film as like um a way to add a more like multi-layered presentation like of the project. And then now I'm going to show some images from the project. And then at the end, I'll show like a small snippet of the film that I've been working on. If I'm going too fast through the pictures, like please let me know and I'll like slow down. So these last few images were some of the last pictures that I made in my grandparents' house in October. So this is like the last time I was in my grandparents' house. The house sold in October, so that's when like the photographic project ended. Um, so this one this one, and this picture were all pictures that I made with my grandfather's camera that I actually inherited year after he had passed away. And then this is the last picture. And I showed this project, like I guess the first like public viewing of the project was last year in April. This was before I made like the new images. So I kind of have this sort of, I kind of think of the installation as like blips or vignettes. So these sort of like small like collages within the installation. So these are just a few pictures from this showing of this work, of some of this work last year. I think, oh, I added this photo twice on accident. And then Rosa, do you mind sharing your screen and showing the video?
Yeah, sure.
And then I'll give a cue when to like stop.
Yeah. If you can stop sharing, Lindsay, then I can show my screen. Perfect.
Thank you.
Can you see it?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay.
And then Rosa, you can stop here. So I guess like the general concept of the video is like a story of how I like find this gem and I like take it through the house. So it's also like I kind of want to do something that's a little bit more like whimsical in terms of narrative. And then I also just see it as like a last goodbye to the house. So this is only like the first like minute or so. I imagine that the video will be a lot more polished when I actually finish it. I'm learning how to use the software, so I imagine the cuts will not be as rough. I do want to preface this is like my first like attempt at making video work, so I'm not a filmmaker. But yeah, this is like getting into video is like a new medium for me. And I wanted like the audio, I wanted to feature sort of ambient sounds of the house and like sound recording I've taken of my grandparents' house. And now I'm trying to figure out like if I want any sort of like narration. But this is the most like in progress portion of the project. And that's it. If anybody has any questions, thank you, Salvatore. Thank you, Rosa. Thank you, class. I really enjoyed this. I feel like it really pushed my work, like particularly to finish the photo portion. So I'm glad that that is done. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. And also thank you for putting yourself very much outside of your comfort zone and starting to really explore also moving images, which is something new to you. I also like the way you describe your project, that is more than a documentation, it's a sort of memoir, or like something that really goes into this idea in which the house becomes like not the setting, but is a main character of the story. And then you narrate the story through this idea of the house. I think it's a very interesting perspective in your work. And I would be curious to know, like, what do you think that the video adds that the photograph can't really say?
I think you kind of touched on it, is like perspective, or sort of like the ambience of the house, because I don't think I can necessarily convey that through a still image. So I guess, I don't know, for lack of a better word, the like essence of the house, or the like spirit of the house, I think it's kind of hard to capture in a still image. And also just like challenging myself, like I've been photographing since like 2013, so this is like I don't know how people make a feature film, because even editing that 1 minute, I was just like, wow, this is so freaking hard. But yeah, I would say that sort of the like isness of the house that like can't be put into sort of like a flat 2D image. I don't know if that answers your question. It's not like a specific like thing that I'm thinking about, but I guess like essence might be the closest approximation.
Yeah, totally. I think that also the narrative that you bring in the video is different than what you show in the photographs. Also because in the video you are really somehow going into a specific story that in a way compensate, complete, but at the same time can live by its own in comparison to what you're saying with the photographs, right? And I think this is a very interesting approach to deepen also like, and again, maybe to deepen a character, which is the house in this case.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think also once the video is edited, I think there will be a lot more like views of outside of the house, which I don't really like looking through the photographs, there aren't like too many pictures that were made outside.
Yeah.
So I think that might be something like interesting to explore.
Totally. And I think also you have some footage that now we didn't see today, of course, that play well in the sense, like when you also show the tree and you show like some elements that surround the house that I think make, deepen that view on it. Thank you very much, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Jin, it's your turn now.
Okay, let me share my screen. Yeah. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. So before I start, I want to say thank you to Salvatore, Rosa, PhMuseum, and the lovely classmates. It's a lovely experience. I'm Jin Chen. I'm from Taiwan, and I'm a visual artist currently based in London. I use photogrammetry to create photography works for years, and my works are about belonging. Sandwich Biscuit is the project I'm working on during the class, and it's about how I turn ACG elements into personal shelters. This is related to my growing up background in Taiwan, and it also reflects how I deal with being an immigrant in London and how I find belonging. I collect ACG elements from streets in different locations, in different times, and then I merge them through photogrammetry to create a final artwork. So currently, I have 9 pieces of works in sandwich biscuits, and the number is increasing. I want to talk about the development process. Everything starts from street photo collections. I collect photos from streets and then I print every photo out. I write down code on every photo. I will explain this later in the presentation. And then I scan them again, bring them back to the computer using photogrammetry software to generate the 3D model and bring the 3D model into Blender using virtual camera to take photos again. And in the end, I print them out. Also in this project, I create a browser-based work to showcase how the photo collections react with the photogrammetry shelter. I will show the browser later in the presentation as well. So the street photo, the fragment collection parts, when we take photo by camera, by phone, the system usually will give each image a default code, right? And I print the photos out and I write down the code based on my own system. So this is a really slowly process, but this process helped me to transform these fragments into something more personal. And this process made me feel solid and make me feel grounded and comfortable. After that, I scanned all of these nodes back to the computer and generate a 3D model. So the models actually changes by adding more and more photos, like more and more collection inside. For example, as you can see in prototype A, this model only contains the photos I collected from Bangkok. It's about First Gundam. And in prototype B, it's also about First Gundam, but I added in the photos from Taipei, London, and Tokyo. And you can see the model is changing. I really like the consequences between the photo collection and the changes of a final outcome. And of course, in the end, I print the photos out. Yeah, I put the 3D model inside Blender and set up the virtual camera, take photos, and I print them out. I really need to print the final results out. It helped me to feel grounded and it's important for me. Also in this project, I created a pick for each prints. I place the prints together with the corresponding street fragments. I want to highlight the relationship between the origin and the final outcome. Okay, yeah, here comes the browser. Let me show you the browser. Can you see a browser?
Yep.
Cool. So yes, I want to explain why I would like to create a browser-based work for this project, because usually I can only let the audience to imagine how these fragments work together, how these fragments combine a model. But in browser, I can directly show them. They can see the texture. They can see the color of a model. And also in this page, they can see the overview of a model and the related fragments. By placing the mouse on the fragments, the related part of the models will light up. By clicking the models, you can see the final prints. Currently, the browser contains 2 pieces of works. I aim to bring all the works inside. This is the second one. You can see model. Yeah, and the final prints. So yeah, let me go back to the presentation. The material structure of the work. This is a huge project, contains like various elements. Of course, it contains final prints. And I also have default collections visual with the default code from camera and phone. And I have a huge amount of handwritten recording notes. This is I think the notes is a body of the works. It's a body of the shelter. It's a body of the 3D model, everything. And I have a browser-based work and depicts. And also, I create photogrammetry still images in some situation when I cannot show the digital-based artwork. I will show the still images instead to reveal the connection between the fragments and the model. So in the end, I would like to talk about how photogrammetry has reshaped my perspective to photography. I think, like for me, I think photography is no longer about moments, it's about layers, it's about accumulation, it's about consequences. I led the project, but the process also leads me. It guides me through instability and lands me somewhere stable. So this is why I call the result a shelter. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I think that's everything from me.
Thank you very much, Gina. Thank you for your
you.
presentation. Indeed, I mean, also in your case, we had several discussions, several conversations. Your starting point was different, and then we went deeper into possible direction until you came to what you present today.
Yeah.
And it's pretty amazing the process that led you here, I think.
Thank you.
And I'm very happy also that you managed to create this browser art piece,
Yeah.
because I think that is also like very, very interesting to understand even what lies behind these images. Also, there is this meticulous collection and coding, which is pretty impressive, especially the handwritten one. That, of course, I mean, it really suggests the amount of work that lies behind what you are presenting, right? To me, I've always been very fascinating, and maybe this is a question that, I mean, we spoke about, but might be interesting for our audience as well. Like, you start from a very highly technological and digital perspective, which is photogrammetry, right? That's the core of your work.
Yeah.
But then your ending point, at least what you see as your ending point, is the prints, right? What is the connection? What is the relationship for you personally between like a way of photographing, which is highly technological, highly specific, and also lives in a 3D space, to go then back to a 2D space and the print as a final artwork?
I think I can talk about like why I started to use photogrammetry, because in the very, very, very beginning, I was like a normal photographer. I used camera, and because I started to think about the moment things, I think is like really common for every photographer. What kind of when you click the camera, is that the moment that you really capture? I started to think about this question. And photogrammetry, because it's like a duration. You take photos for a period of time and then you merge them together. So for me, this methods kinds of answer the question. So that is why I started to use photogrammetry. And in the beginning, it was like an experiment, but I realized this media is really, I don't know how to explain this, like, it's like a feeling that I really need to use this media. I'm still looking for an answer because I don't know why. So I think the question why I use photogrammetry, but I print the final results out, is I haven't have the answer yet because both of the printing and photogrammetry are really important to me, but I haven't figured out the connection between them yet. So currently I just keep doing, I just keep combining these two things together. And I believe if I work on more project in the future, one day I will figure it out. It's like, because I think my art practice is kind of digging inside myself to figure out why I love something, why something is important to me, and I transform this into artwork. So I think this answer will appear in the future in my art practice.
Well, I also think that there is like this interesting connection between, we were talking earlier about materiality, right?
Yeah.
So there is this question about the materiality of the image that also in your case, I think, is something that probably might be one of the reasons or might be explored further, because of course, when you print an image that especially is 3D modeled, in a way, you give to this image a materiality, right?
Yeah.
And the surface also becomes different. And I think, I mean, it's very fascinating because also you start because you need it for the technique that you use from a huge amount of images, but then you somehow operate this sublimination in a way. You go back to one or two prints. You were talking about diptychs, for instance, right?
Yeah.
And this is also a process of selection, I guess, that is also very interesting. It's like almost like rephotographing to some extent.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jin. That was very interesting also to go a bit deeper into your way of working.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jin. Now it's time for Sebastian.
The last one, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm always the last one.
Always the last one.
But I choose to be the last one. Perfect. So, hi, everyone. Also from my side, thanks a lot to everyone in the class, Salvatore and Rosa. It was really helpful for me to join this masterclass. I will show you what I created throughout this process. So my project is called Fragments of a Dream. I am currently based in Bogota. I work I come from journalism, added photography to the mix of my work a few years ago, and I focus a lot on migration. So over the course of the last years, I traveled along major migration routes to the US, so to Darien Gap, accompanied a migrant caravan in Mexico, several times along the US-Mexico border, and spent also a year in New York, where I worked on a project about the migration crisis there in the shelters. So I have all these interviews that I recorded, all these photographs that I took, I gathered objects, and of course also have a lot of information. And when I came into the masterclass, my biggest questions were, how can I create a framework to bring this material together? And how can I create an immersive experience in a physical space with this material? Because of course, in journalism, you always boil it down a lot, and it's a very straightforward story that you tell. So I was kind of looking for a place to go a bit more into depth. What I came up with is, this is kind of my answer to these questions. It's a room where several of these materials are gathered. You enter the room on the top right, leave it at the bottom right, and I'll guide you through different aspects of it now. So a brief walkthrough. So when you enter the room, the idea is that it's darkened down quite a bit. And one of the first things that you see when you walk through is the projection on the wall of questions that transport facts about migration, but also make it relatable a lot to people who have no idea about it. So for example, this is, would you pay the price of a round-the-world flight ticket just to enter the United States? That's the actual price cartels charge for migrants to cross from Mexico into the US, and it's about the same price as a cheaper around the world flight ticket. Additionally to that, I'm thinking about creating a scene where I go a bit more into depth on the background of these questions, of these facts. So here, for example, the border security budget increased quite a bit over the last years, and the most impact it had was on the smuggling prices. In the scene, I would include my own writing, the first-person voice, archival material from Border Patrol, and also photographs that I took at US-Mexico border. As you walk further, you encounter the photography aspect that first represents the dream. When you talk to migrants, especially migrants from Latin America, at some point, they always end up talking about the sueño americano, so the American dream. That's quite a common phenomenon. It's quite present, and it's quite a strong dream for them to take on this journey. And these are also pictures that I took. The two people that you can see here. The first one to the left is outside of a migrant shelter in New York, a Venezuelan, and the second one is a woman who also entered the United States irregularly a few years back, and she's working now as a Uber Eats driver. And I met her in Brooklyn, New York, and the nature parts that you can see are from the Sonoran Desert. So these images kind of represent this American dream that's connected a lot with making it, with a neoliberal aspect, also the way they present the dream on social media, and the nature aspect is kind of part of the revelation that follows the dream and leads us into reality. Here we see images from Bogota. This is a guy, he also tried to enter the United States regularly, but he got deported on Valentine's Day this year. And I met him here in Bogota, visited him several times at home, and also accompanied him working. He works as a street vendor in the shopping district here. And I would include a short short context of his story here, and end it with the reality part, with thermal imagery that I took along the border, that leads us to the second part of the room. That's objects. When I was traveling along the US-Mexico border, I gathered a lot of objects that migrants dispose there. And the idea is to put the actual objects on the wall so people can go there, can explore them, can touch them, and kind of get closer to understanding the migrant experience through exploring the objects and thinking about the stories that could be behind them. For example, to the bottom right, these are flight tickets from African countries. People could wonder, okay, that's kind of weird that those flight tickets are still here. The clothes in the middle, they are from the Sonoran Desert. They are used to cross the desert and to stay undetected by Border Patrol. Top right are water gallons, also used to cross the Sonoran Desert, and headache pills also from the Sonoran Desert, crashed phones. No idea what happened to that, but yeah, that's part of the idea behind that. Another aspect of it is audio. I recorded all my interviews, so I have a lot of audio material, and the idea here is to create an audio installation where you stand in the center of a room, and there's voices popping up to your left, to your front, to your right, to your back. So you kind of have to follow these audios and have to follow these voices to get an idea of the story. The story here is not totally in a linear way, but it's more like fragments of singular migrant experiences. Can be from the way to the United States, can be from the border, from being deported, to kind of having this dream and this kind of illusion of the American reality for an irregular migrant arriving there. And with the audio, there's also the projection of text, of the translation to English, because otherwise people would have a hard time following everything. So this is an example of what this could not look like, but what it sounds like. Yeah, that's just to give an impression what it could sound. This guy, he has lived in the United States for several years already, so he has more, he speaks English. Others would speak Spanish or French. Yes, and the whole thing has a twist to it that also projects the migrants or the sense of exclusivity that's there with entering the United States. So as you can see here, you would enter the room here at the white spot to the top right. You enter it. The first thing you would hear, or your senses would be attracted to, are the audios playing on the other side of the room, so to your left. But you cannot go there because there's a replica of the US-Mexico border wall in the way. So you're kind of forced to follow the path that someone else created for you. Here you can see in this example that in this floor plan that the entrance would be just at the end of the room, but it could also be a door, a hidden door that's at somewhere in the wall, and you first have to find that door to enter the other side. Yeah, and that's it from my side. Thanks a lot. I think, stop sharing for some questions if you have some.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. Also, your topic is very, it's a complicated topic. First of all, it's very much related also to the news right now, but also it's been explored a lot. So we've been talking a lot about, for instance, what can you bring, what can be your impact to such a story. And I think it's very interesting the way you also expanded your way of understanding storytelling and included also different elements into your work that go beyond the photograph that you already take. So for me, the question for you would be very much related to, again, it's process-based, but also in relation to like, how was for you to work, including different elements in your work, like audio, more installative elements, the objects. What is the impact next to the photographs in narrating the story for you?
Well, I think at the end, everything that we consume delivers information, but all of this information is delivered through a different dimension, through a different level of understanding. And when with the objects, for example, it's new that you don't just tell the people what's there, but it's more of a subtle delivering of information, and also not a super clear one. There's some aspect of mystery to it, and you don't explain everything. So I think that was new to me, that you don't just kind of feed information to people, but you let them also make up their own mind about it, or make up their own story that could lie behind them. And I think a bit of the same element is there with the audio installation, that it's not a linear story of one person that just guides you through their experience, but it's more of a gathering or amassing of several experiences that are not necessarily related to each other. Most of the people don't know each other, but still they kind of can paint a fuller picture by combining them and creating this mosaic of voices and of audios, and kind of give you the visitor, as the viewer, better understanding of what it's like to go through this process and what it actually means to people, not necessarily just the process-based element, but also the emotional element. And I think with audio, if you hear the voice of a person and this person, for example, talks super calm about the worst thing that you could imagine happening to you in your life, that also says something about this experience and about the person. So
thank you very much, Sebastian. And yes, I believe that I mean, your topics is also very close to what I've been doing in my past. So I think it's very interesting also to try to bring new narratives over there. We also, during the process, we ask ourselves a lot of ethical questions, a lot of different possibilities in terms of representation, of course, because it's like paramount in this project. And I think this was also a very interesting reflection on how to bring like also this non-linearity that is also becomes like a conceptual drive to the whole story that you are narrating, of course.
thanks a lot.
Thank you, Sebastian. So we reached the end for the presentation for today. And I wanted to say thank you to the group, to Salvatore, and to the public for today, because it was nice. It was amazing to have you together and in this last month, and it was also great to see how every work evolved since the beginning, because I remember I was the first presentation, and I think all the works grew up a lot, I can say. So thank you very much again to everyone, Salvatore, and yeah, we can end the streaming now. And please, for the participants, let's stay a couple of minutes more, because at least we can have the proper greetings after the live session.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, we are no more live, guys.